All right, we got a couple of big fights going down Saturday night in Singapore, UFC 275. Now, I consider myself to be a halfway decent MMA handicapper, especially at the highest level of the sport. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sitting on the couch in my pajamas with a little bit of a buzz watching these things. So why don't we bring in somebody who has a little bit of a different perspective, somebody who's actually been in the octagon, somebody who is 10-0 in their MMA career. I am talking about the Olympian Mark Madsen, the newest member of the VegasInsider family. Mark will be joining me to break down these fights and fights in the future. Mark, how's it going today? How's the training coming along?
It is going absolutely amazing. And let me elaborate a little bit. I'm actually 12-0 in MMA.
Okay.
Undefeated. So
there we go.
The two last are pretty important, but it's going absolutely great here. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. Recently moved from Denmark over to the U.S., so I am ready to go full steam ahead.
Okay, excellent. So, Mark, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the action here. We're going to start with the main event. Of course, we have Glover Teixeira. He will be defending the light heavyweight title. He's going against Jiri Prochazka. And we have the champion coming in as a plus 170 underdog, and I'm going to take a shot on him, and that number has a lot to do with it. Teixeira is a guy who is constantly undervalued, and he's been constantly cashing in here as an underdog. And the big storyline in this fight, of course, is the age difference. We have a guy in Teixeira who's 42 years old, taking on Prochazka, who comes back at 29 years old, and I think that experience is going to make a big difference. Teixeira's been in there with many of the best strikers in the world. You cannot say the same thing about Prochazka in regards to being in there with many of the best grapplers in the world. And I think Teixeira absolutely falls into that category. Submission wins in 3 of his last 5 fights. Also has that finishing ability with his hands. And ultimately, I think up until this point of his career, this is the most complete fighter that Prochazka will be in there with. So I will take a shot on the champion to retain his belt at plus 170. So my questions for you, Mark, what do you think of the age difference here between these two guys? And what do you think of the fact that this is just Prochazka's 3rd fight in the UFC, and he's already fighting for the title? So how do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think Jiri Prochazka has done very well for himself in the UFC. I mean, being in a title shot after only 3 fights is quite amazing. When it comes to the age difference, I mean, you have the youth fighting an older guy, but I think Glover can compensate a lot with his experience. But to break the fight down, I think it all comes down to Glover's chin, to be honest. I mean, he get hits a lot in the early round, but comes back. So I think the real question is, can he get hit by Jiri Prochazka? Can he get to the inside? Can he take him down? And can he get the job done?
Okay, so yeah, I think that will ultimately be what this fight comes down to if Teixeira can avoid the big shot. Okay, so we're going to move on to the co-main event. The women's flyweight title is on the line. We have Valentina Shevchenko coming in as a monster favorite here at minus 630. Taila Santos, the challenger, coming back at plus 450. And the bottom line is, I'm not willing to go against Shevchenko, especially in this weight class, but we got to find a better number than minus 630. I'm not going to come on here and give it a pick that's minus 630. So we got to try to find a little bit of value. And I think we got excellent value on Shevchenko to win inside the distance, coming in at plus 110. So this is a 5-round fight. And Shevchenko has been on an absolute tear since capturing the title in this division, finishing 4 of her 6 opponents. And she does tend to find an opening when she is in there against a little bit more of an aggressive opponent. And I do think Santos does fall into that category, not afraid to throw the strikes, constantly looking for a takedown. She is very active in there. And over the course of a 5-round fight, I do think Shevchenko will find an opening. So I'll take her to get the finish here at plus 110. Mark, how do you see this one playing out?
Well, I think this is Valentina's toughest fight outside Amanda Nunes. So I think we really have a fight here. Santos is tall, physical, strong, dynamic. She has good Muay Thai, good clinch, good knees, good jab. and she runs a good double leg takedown. So, I mean, we have a real fight here. And if Santos manages to put Shevchenko on her back, I think we've seen maybe a little weakness there with Valentina staying a little bit too long on her back. So that could be an opening. But, I mean, it's a real fight, and it is the toughest fight outside Amanda Nunes for Valentina. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what type of game plan someone goes in there with against a fighter like Shevchenko, who's been so dominant. So it should be absolutely a very interesting fight. So, okay, we're going to wrap things up with a rematch of one of the best fights that you'll ever see. Of course, I'm talking about Weili versus Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Weili coming in here at -165. Joanna comes back at +140, right in line with what the odds were for the first fight. And I'm going to go with the favorite here, Weili. I just see this as fighters who are at two different spots of their career. Now, despite coming off of back-to-back losses to Rose Namajunas, I do think Weili is still right in the thick of her prime. Joanna, meanwhile, I don't see her as the same fighter who dominated this division for 2.5 years, 2-4 in her last 6 fights. And she's also been off for 2 years now. And I don't necessarily think that will help her. It's always a bit of a guessing game when you're talking about ring rust. So, Mark, how do you see this one playing out? And do you think there might be some ring rust there for Joanna?
I think that's a really good question. And, I mean, taking a 2-year time off, I know she's been training. Of course she's been training, but still haven't been competing for 2 years. I mean, this is a sport with no slack, whatever. If you take your foot off the pedal, you will get a crucial lesson by somebody who's been working. And Weili has really been putting work in. I mean, she fought Rose for the title here, and I mean, I'm just so excited. I remember the 242 event in Vegas where they fought each other. I mean, this was one of the greatest female fights of all times. And I'm just so excited to be able to sit down and actually watch this fight. I mean, we're talking about a fight where Weili is bringing a lot of power. Joanna is bringing a lot of touch and go. She has to be able to move around, not get hit by the power Weili possesses. So, I mean, man, we're in for a ride here.
Absolutely. Yeah, this should be a good fight. There's just something about Joanna, though. I don't know if she's the same fighter that she was there when she had her long title reign. But, Mark, I'm not going to let you off the hook here without asking about what's going on at the top of your division. Of course, you're climbing the lightweight rankings. And at the top of the division, UFC 274, we saw Charles Oliveira pick up an impressive win over Justin Gaethje. That came with a lot of controversy, though, right? Because we saw he missed weight and, a lot of some red flags maybe in terms of lack of professionalism. He was saying it was the scales fault. So what do you make of what happened there at UFC 274 and about what's going on at the top of the lightweight division?
So I don't know what happened with the scale, but I will say this. I have more than 3,000 wrestling matches behind me, and I have never missed weight once in my life. I mean, we talk about the UFC, we talk about the Champions League. If you're the champion, there's no way you're not going to make weight. I don't care how long you have to sit in there, you have to make weight. So, yeah, I think it was a very unprofessional move by Charles Oliveira. I don't know the reasons, but being in the UFC, you have to be professional. You have to make weight, and it's part of being the champ.
Absolutely. Okay, so there you have it. Our look at UFC 275 and Mark's opinion on what's going on at the top of his weight class there, the UFC lightweight division. So best of luck to everybody with your bets. And Mark, thank you again for joining us. We will absolutely see you again soon. So best of luck with your bets, everybody. And make sure you keep it locked on VegasInsider.com for all your UFC betting needs.